ජීවිතේ වැඩිපුර ලැබෙන හොඳම දේවල් විඳින්න. දැන් SLT broadband වෙතින් 75% දක්වා වැඩිපුර data සතුට ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා සිට ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම්.
Making headlines on First at 9. Through the eyes of the Speaker. Speaker Karujaya Surya tells Parliament that he accepts the validity of the present unity government. Floating rumours and exits. Sri Lanka's defence attaché in UK, Brigadier Priyanka Fernando, arrives in the island. The Sri Lankan High Commissioner there, however, rumoured to have resigned. Local authorities' woes. 25% women representation proving problematic for the Election Commission.
We have less than, I think, 10 councils. We can't have 25% quota.
Slow progress. Sri Lanka only manages to advance 4 places in the Global Corruption Perceptions Index.
And the actual opportunity for there to be transformative change through asset declarations, there's no progress at all.
No need. Reports of the Maldivian president rejecting UN intervention to solve the political crisis. Legal Affairs Minister, however, says otherwise.
The Maldivian government is very open to all international stakeholders.
Good evening, you're watching First at 9. I'm Katharina Chang. Now on to your top story tonight. Speaker Karujaya Surya today made it clear in Parliament that he accepts the validity of the current national government. The Speaker made his views clear, responding to questions raised by the members of the joint opposition.
A proposal was brought into the Parliament to establish a national government. Prime Minister and the government said that the two parties came to an agreement. If there is such a document, it should be presented to you, Speaker. Honourable Speaker, the Prime Minister made a statement yesterday about the national government. General Secretary of the UPFA also made a statement about the same matter. There is a national government. This is the Parliament. I took legal counsel on this very same matter and I was instructed that it's not necessary to make further statements since both the relevant parties made things clear. What we are saying is that even parliamentarian Dinesh Gunawardena is part of the UPFA because he is the deputy chairman of the party. There is a constitutional crisis here. The tenure of over 20 ministers have expired now. If you want this national government, continue with it. But please table the relevant proposal in Parliament. If there is a written agreement, it should be tabled in Parliament for our perusal. If not, even your position as a Speaker won't be valid.
Meanwhile, President Maithripala Sirisena expressed his views during Professor Vishwavarnapala's condolence motion in Parliament today. The President said late Professor Vishwavarnapala, who was the former General Secretary of the UPFA and former Cabinet Minister, set an example as a great politician by fulfilling his duties, not only as a politician, but also as an intellectual, irrespective of political differences.
A possible cabinet reshuffle became the talk of the town in recent days in the aftermath of the recently concluded local authorities election. The topic of the reshuffle and the country's prevailing political situation drew various opinions today, especially Minister Dayasiri Jayasekara, who's been away from the political spotlight for a while, voicing his views today.
මුග දවසකින් මොකද මේ සංගවිලායි
සංගවිලා නේ
ඔබතුමාගේ ඇමතිකම තියෙනවා
මම දන්නේ නැහැ ඒක ජනාධිපතිතුමා තමයි තීරණය කරන්න ඕනේ
දැන් ඔබතුමා කියන්නේ මහින්ද මහත්තයා පැත්තට යා යුතුයි කියලාද
මහින්ද මහත්තයා පැත්තට යා යුතුයි කියලා මම කියන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය අපි ආරක්ෂා කරන්න වැඩ කරන්න ඕනේ කියලා
දිගටම මෛත්‍රීපාල ජනාධිපතිතුමා සමග ඉන්නවද
අපේ පක්ෂයේ කවුද නායකයා ඒ නායකයත් එක්ක මම හැමදාම හිටියා ඉතින් හෙට වෙන කවුරු හරි ආවත් ඒත් අපි නායකයත් එක්ක අපි ඉන්නවා
දැන් අපට ආරංචිය අගමැතිතුමා වෙනස් කිරීමේ සටනේ ඔබ ඉන්නවා කියලා
ඒවා ඉතින් අපි කතා කරමු අනාගතේ දැන් කතා කරලා ඉතින් කාරණා නෙවෙයි කියලා හිතා
මට තේරෙන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂය
What I understand is SLFP is continuing the government with the UNP. I call on our people not to be deceived by that. An election surely will be held in 15 or 18 months. We will launch our struggle once Mahinda Rajapaksa becomes the leader of the opposition. There is no use in going behind anyone such as SB Dissanayaka and Susil Premajanta. They always deceived us.
මුන් හැමදාම අපි රැට්ටුවා.
ඔබතුමාගේ අමාත්‍යාංශය මාරු වේද කොහොමද? වෙනසක් වෙනවා කියලා.
We got to know there will be a change. How it would be done will be decided by the leaders of the country.
රටේ නායකයෝ තීරණය කරයි.
ඔබතුමාට අධිකරණාමාත්‍ය ධූරය දෙන්න යනවා කියලා ආරංචියක් තියෙනවා. ඒක බාර ගන්න සූදානම්ද?
දෙයක් ගන්නවද රට වෙනුවෙන් සේවය කරන්න අපි ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නේ.
We are extremely worried. There has been no change in the status quo of the government and we are back to square one. This we see as part of the plot that was enacted by the international forces against us. For what purpose? People think because Mahinda was friendly with China. Now these people are also friendly with China. There was one purpose, that is to change the constitution so that foreign forces against us could get a foothold in this country. It's everything to do with geopolitics. They had to have a destabilized Sri Lanka which they can manipulate. You see, the last minute, the two ambassadors, American and India, came and told Sirisena and Wickremesinghe, come together and form a government so that we will be able to get this, and it has been achieved.
In the meantime, Minister of Special Assignment Dr. Sarath Amunugama says that legal and constitutional constraints brought about through the 19th Amendment to the Constitution leaves any major changes immediately impossible.
ආණ්ඩුව දැන් ඒ කියන්නේ මේ අවුරුදු දෙකක් මේ විදිහටම යහපාලනය යනවා.
ඔව් නැත්තම්.
ඒ කියන්නේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩල වෙනසක් මොකද සිදු වෙනවද?
නෑ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ
There will be a change in the cabinet tomorrow. The public mandate has been given for 2 more years. I don't think every ministerial position will change, but most will.
ඊපත් ගොඩක් ඒකෙන් වෙනස් වෙයි.
ඔබ කයිදස්පස්සියා මේ එක පිරිස එකතු වෙලා රජයක් පිටවන්න උත්සාහ කරානේ.
කවුරු වුණත්
Whoever it is, they have to obtain the majority of votes in parliament. If not, you cannot establish a government. Besides that, there is an ongoing constitution issue as well. One is a majority issue and the other is a constitution issue. And the president needs to consult the legal sector over this. Now the constitution used to state that you could dissolve the government at any time, but that has been changed. In the past, the president could remove the prime minister at any time. That used to happen in the past. It happened during the time of Chandrika. But after this 19th Amendment was passed, you cannot do that anymore. Certain procedures need to be followed. It's a matter for the legal sector. This is something the whole parliament passed.
ඒක මුළු පාර්ලිමේන්තුව සම්මත කරපු දෙයක්.
It is reported that the Sri Lankan High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Amari Vijayawardena, has handed over her resignation. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, however, rejected the claim, saying it is not the case.
Earlier today, media reported that Sri Lankan High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Amari Vijayawardena, had handed over her resignation. However, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, issuing a media communique, rejected reports of Amari Vijayawardena resigning from the post. The ministry went on to say that she will, quote, conclude her contract on her own volition by the 31st of March 2018, unquote. When inquired by First at 9, the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Maheshini Kolonna, said the impression given suggesting Sri Lankan High Commissioner to Great Britain, Amari Vijayawardena, resigned and has come to Sri Lanka is incorrect. She stressed that Amari Vijayawardena continues to be the High Commissioner of Sri Lanka in Great Britain. Amari Mandika Vijayawardena was appointed as Sri Lanka's High Commissioner to Great Britain and Northern Ireland in 2016, and she presented her letter of credentials to Queen Elizabeth II at a ceremonial event held at the Buckingham Palace in November that year.
Minister Council of Defence attached to the Sri Lankan High Commission in London, Brigadier Priyanka Fernando, arrived in the country today. He arrived following a recall from the government relating to a recent video which went viral on social media, depicting Brigadier Priyanka Fernando making certain gestures towards LTTE sympathisers who were protesting outside the Sri Lankan High Commission in London.
A group of LTTE sympathisers engaged in a protest near the Sri Lanka High Commission in London on the 4th of February, the day of Sri Lanka's independence. Minister Councillor of Defence attached to the Sri Lanka High Commission in London, Brigadier Priyanka Fernando, arrived at the scene and made a certain gesture towards the protesters. The Minister of Foreign Affairs immediately released a statement citing the Brigadier's suspension from duties in light of social media revelations. President Maithripala Sirisena, however, revoked the move and reinstated him. Meanwhile, yesterday, more than a week after the incident, Army Media spokesperson Brigadier Sumit Atapattu told media that Brigadier Fernando is recalled to have discussions with the Army commander. Accordingly, Brigadier Priyanka Fernando arrived at the Katunayake Bandaranaike International Airport on Sri Lankan Airlines flight UL 504. Despite some at the airport expecting to meet the Brigadier in person, officials at the airport did not let them through. In the meantime, the topic of the Brigadier's recall was the subject at several media briefings today.
There is no reason for the Brigadier to be recalled. We questioned the statement made by the Army spokesman on the recall of the Brigadier. He cited concerns of the Brigadier's security as cause for the recall and not to take disciplinary action against him. Tamil diaspora wanted to chase Brigadier Priyanka Fernando from the United Kingdom. The government has fulfilled that requirement and has recalled him to Sri Lanka. It's clear that this government bows down before terrorists.
Sri Lanka police confirmed today that the explosion on a passenger bus in Kahagole yesterday was caused by live hand grenade. Media spokesperson of police SP Rohan Gunasekara said that the suspects related to the incident include 2 army soldiers. He added that one of the army soldiers have been identified as a person who was on his way to the Air Force camp in Diyathalawa.
An explosion on a passenger bus in the area of Kahagole in Bandarawala left 19 passengers injured yesterday. All victims are currently being treated at the Diyathalawa base hospital. 7 army soldiers, 5 airmen and 7 civilians were injured during the explosion. Meanwhile, responding to inquiries, military spokesperson Brigadier Sumit Atapattu said a special investigation has been launched regarding yesterday's incident.
Chairman of the Election Commission Mahinda Deshapriya says that women representatives to local authorities can be selected from both the candidate list as well as the additional list. Addressing a media briefing today, he went on to emphasize that some victorious political parties are finding it difficult to meet the stipulated quota of 25% women representation at certain local bodies.
Our deputy commissioners and the assistant commissioners, they are the returning officers of the relevant councils. Other than Ampara assistant commissioner, all are here. They have already prepared the letters to the political party secretaries and the independent groups leaders to nominate this number of candidates from your list, not from the additional list only. Winners already elected. Losers, it is not nice word, not you can say runner-ups. So, the additional list candidates they can appoint. According to the council percentage, 20 members, 1/4 must be females. And we have one council called Manmune Pattu in Batticaloa district. According to the law, the party has an overhang but no female candidate elected. All other parties can appoint only 2 and less than 20%. Other than Manmune Pattu, Karathi, Turikkovil and only some places, we have less than I think 10 councils. We can't have 25% quota.
The Government Medical Officers Association and the Medical Faculty Students Parents Association expressed their delight over the government's decision to transfer the students of SITEM to the medical faculty of Sir John Kothalavala Defence University. Inter-University Students Federation, however, noted that their battle will only end if the abolishment of SITEM is gazetted.
A meeting to discuss the issues pertaining to SITEM was held at the Presidential Secretariat, chaired by President Maithripala Sirisena yesterday. The discussion also included the Attorney General, the Chancellor of the Kothalavala Defence University and the Chairman of the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka. It was decided at the discussion that students with required basic qualifications will be transferred to the medical faculty of the Sir John Kothalavala Defence University. Meanwhile, convening a media briefing in Colombo today, the Government Medical Officers Association and the Medical Faculty Students Parents Association expressed their delight over the decision.
We express our delight over the President's move, but if somebody is of the view that the GMO is celebrating victory, there is no such thing. The government should make this policy decision practical and a reality. The Gazette to abolish SITEM has not been issued yet. We ask the government to kindly issue the Gazette. The problem will not be solved just because they transfer the students to KDU or to some other institution. The Cabinet has decided that the minimum standards are 2 Cs and 1 S.
Let's now take a look at some other emerging stories across Sri Lanka.
Minister of Agriculture Duminda Disanayake says that necessary financial aid to farmers will be provided before the season begins for paddy cultivation and 5 other types of crops. He stated this at a media briefing held today. A mugger crocodile in the area of Tadikulam in Vaunia was caught by residents and handed over to wildlife officials. A motorcyclist was apprehended by the police special task force close to Debarueva in Tissamaharame with 2 hand grenades in his possession. The resettled people in Mullaitivu staged a protest in front of the Gotabaya Navy camp in Mullaitivu today, demanding the release of land acquired by the Navy camp in the area of Vattuval in Mullaitivu. Protesters say over 600 acres of the land in the border between Vattuval Bridge and Vellamulli Vaikal in Mullaitivu is taken over by the Navy.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back. Sri Lanka has moved up to the 91st position from 95th out of 180 countries after its Corruption Perceptions Index score rose by 2 points from 36 to 38. Executive Director of Transparency International Sri Lanka, Asoka Abhisekara, stated that there is no progress in opportunity to be transformative. He made the remark at a media briefing held at TISL headquarters today to announce the results of the CPI 2017.
Sri Lanka for 2017 is ranked 91st with a score of 38. So what we can see is that the rankings have marginally improved and the score has marginally improved from 36 to 38. For any change in score to be considered significant, it requires typically a change of 6 points. That is a global measure. But here we have seen a 2-point increase, which is illustrative of the fact that whilst the score has improved, it has improved very slowly. And the improvement is only fair at best. And given that this is an index that looks at the perception of public sector corruption, the issues from before and the issues faced now are still similar. So quite naturally, the perceptions of public sector corruption as well remain largely unchanged. Some of you all will know, more than a year ago, Cabinet passed a plan, an open government plan, which included removing all of the secrecy provisions on asset declarations so that the public can access and share asset declarations. Now, the problem there is that I have the right to that information, you have the right to that information, but if I share that information with you or you share that information with me, we are liable to a 2,000 rupee fine and or 2 years of rigorous imprisonment. Where have the changes on things like that, particularly given the fact that Cabinet has approved a plan to actually change that? So this issue around Vatkam Prakasha and the actual opportunity for there to be transformative change through asset declarations, there's no progress at all.
The All Share Price Index today ended 0.41% weaker at 6,571.73, slipping from its highest close since last year's 6th of November hit. Turnover stood at 1.54 billion rupees, well above the year's daily average of 869.6 million rupees. Let's now cross over to Imeshi Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange for a detailed report.
The market capitalization at the end of the day was 3,011.73 billion rupees. Today's foreign purchases were 859.75 million rupees and foreign sales were 199.23 million rupees. There were 7 crossings today and the crossing turnover was 969.22 million rupees.
The Sri Lankan rupee ended slightly weaker today in dull trade as imported dollar demand outweighed selling of the greenback by exporters. The rupee ended at 155 rupees and 25 to 30 cents per dollar compared with yesterday's close of 155 rupees and 10 to 25 cents. Let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other currencies around the world.
Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. Now, Sri Lanka's external sector performance continued to improve in December 2017, mainly with high inflows to the financial accounts of the balance of payments. Sri Lanka's total exports amounted to $11.36 billion last year, when compared with the figure of $10.309 billion in 2016, largely thanks to significant jumps in petroleum products, base metals and articles, food, beverage and tobacco, spices and seafood. The overall industrial exports made a jump of 7.6% last year in comparison to 2016, with agricultural products exports also going up 19%. Minerals and other exports also recorded an increase of 18%. Although earnings from exports increased at a high rate, the increase in import expenditure resulted in widening the trade deficit in December 2017. Continued inflows by ways of tourist earnings and workers' remittances, however, have contributed in curtailing the expanded trade deficit to a certain extent. Improvement in short-term and long-term capital inflows continued during the months and reflecting the favourable developments in the external sector. The balance of payment recorded a surplus $2,068 million in 2017, while gross official reserves of the country stood at $8.0 billion as at end 2017. The Prosecutor General of the Maldives has allegedly said that the extension of a state emergency in the Maldives was unconstitutional. The country's parliament approved the extension sought by President Abdullah Yameen day before yesterday, but it was passed without the constitutionally required quorum of 43 lawmakers.
Two senior officials of the Prosecutor General's office has said that the Prosecutor General Ershad Bisham had told police in a letter the state of emergency was unconstitutional. Yameen imposed a state of emergency on the 5th of February for 15 days to annul a Supreme Court ruling that quashed convictions against 9 opposition leaders and ordered his government to free those held in prison. The emergency ended day before yesterday. The Supreme Court, after the Parliament vote day before yesterday, issued a temporary stay asking all state institutions to follow the state of emergency declaration until it deliberated on a resolution submitted to the court by the Parliament. When Parliament approved the extension of emergency, the ruling party legislators also sought a Supreme Court opinion through a resolution on the approval without the quorum. In his request to extend the emergency, Yameen said, "A threat to national security had not diminished and a constitutional crisis had not been resolved." In the meantime, Deputy Spokesperson of the UN Secretary-General Farhan Haq said yesterday that Maldives President Abdullah Yameen turned down Antonio Guterres' offer to mediate between him and the opposition in the ongoing political crisis. He said that President Yameen responded to the mediation offers, saying that it is wanted at this stage. Asked about Maldives extending the state of emergency for another 30 days, Haq said, quote, "The Secretary-General is following the situation in the Maldives closely and with concern," unquote. The Maldivian Minister of Legal Affairs, Eshat Azima Sakur, however, had this to say on the country's prevailing political situation during a panel discussion with Ada Derana.
It should be accepted that the Maldivian government is very open to all international stakeholders. We even now, currently as we speak, we have the UN Human Rights Commissioner's officers, we have the EU missions visiting us, and we have the UN is even now talking to the Maldives. They have been working as facilitator for all party talks, and I think I honestly don't think it's right to report that the Maldives has rejected the UN role. No, we are still the UN facilitator did come in, try to talk with the parties, and it didn't move forward because of difficulties the parties were having.
Now you can watch the rest of this engaging discussion at 10:30 tonight on channels TV Derana as well as Ada Derana. On to other international news now. President Donald Trump made an extraordinary suggestion yesterday when he said that arming teachers could help prevent massacres such as last week's mass shooting at a Florida high school. Trump voiced support for the idea during an emotional White House meeting with students who survived the shooting and a parent whose child did not. A former student of a school in Florida opened fire at a private school last week, killing 17 people, including students and educators.
It only works where you have people very adept at using firearms, of which you have many. And it would be teachers and coaches. If the coach had a firearm in his locker when he ran at this guy, that coach was very brave. Saved a lot of lives, I suspect. But if he had a firearm, he wouldn't have had a run. He would have shot, and that would have been the end of it.
School teachers have more than enough responsibilities right now than to have the awesome responsibility of lethal force to take a life. Thank you.
Let's now take a look at some other stories making news across the world.
A bomb blast killed 2 bank employees and injured 22 others in Myanmar's northeastern city of Lashio yesterday. Police said an investigation was underway but would not elaborate on whether there were any suspects in the attack. Bangladesh is pressing ahead to turn an uninhabited and muddy Bay of Bengal island into a home for 100,000 Rohingya Muslims who had fled a military crackdown in Myanmar. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina said last Monday that putting Rohingya on the low-lying island of Bhasan Char would be a temporary arrangement to ease congestion at the Cox's Bazar, a refuge for nearly 700,000 who had crossed from the north of Myanmar's Rakhine state since the end of August last year. A ferry explosion at Mexico's tourist hotspot of Playa del Carmen left at least 14 injured yesterday afternoon. Local media reported the injured were transported to hospitals with no life-threatening wounds. A seal that survived a deep neck wound caused by a discarded frisbee was released into the wild yesterday after months of specialist care. The animal, nicknamed Frisbee, was found on a beach and rehabilitated in the nearby town of Horsey in Norfolk in the east of England.
Sri Lankan all-rounder Asela Gunaratne is ruled out of the upcoming Midas Trophy with India and Bangladesh. Gunaratne sustained shoulder injury during a training session for the 2-match T20 series against Bangladesh. The R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo will host all the matches in the tournament, set off to kick off on the 6th and run through to the 18th of March. The Midas Trophy is organised to mark Sri Lanka's 70 years of independence.
Probably the best shot of the game. At the right moment, it's just stunned.
On to rugby now. Sri Lanka Navy and Kandy Sports Club will battle against each other at the final match of the Clifford Cup scheduled to be held over the weekend. Sri Lanka Navy defeated Havelock Sports Club in the first semi-final, while Kandy Sports Club clinched a spot in the final by defeating CRNFC in the second semi-final.
The first semi-final of the Clifford Cup took place between Sri Lanka Navy and Havelock Sports Club. The two sides were neck and neck in early stages of the match, and by half-time, the sides were locked on 12 points. As the battle for a spot in the final intensified, the Navy scored 16 more points, extending their total to 28, to which Havelocks could only respond with 14 points. The 2-point victory guaranteed the Navy a spot in the final. Meanwhile, the second semi-final of the Clifford Cup was worked off between Kandy Sports Club and CRNFC. Kandy once again showcased their superiority and restricted CRNFC to a half-time score of 22-7. CRNFC, however, staged a comeback in the second half, scoring 19 points to take their tally to 26. That, however, proved futile as Kandy also added 16 points of their own and ended the match 38 points to 26.
South Africa comprehensively beat India yesterday in the second T20 International by 6 wickets. South Africa chased down a target of 189 in 18.4 overs to level the 3-match T20 series 1-all.
South Africa won the toss and chose to bowl first. The South African bowlers started off well by claiming the wickets of Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan and Virat Kohli, all for just 45 runs. However, Dhoni scored 52 in just 28 deliveries and Pandey scored 79 in just 48 deliveries, extending the side's total to 188. Chasing a target of 189, South Africa didn't get off to the best of starts as they lost the opening pair in just 38 runs. However, just as a valuable partnership developed for India, it did for the South Africans too, in the likes of JP Duminy and Henrik Klaasen, as they went on to post a remarkable match-winning partnership of 93 runs for the third wicket. In the end, South Africa got to 189 with 8 balls to spare. The 3-match T20 series is now levelled with 1 more to go day after tomorrow.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Let's now cross over to Shanla Fernando at the Other Derana Weather Centre for your forecast first evening edition.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures for tomorrow are to range between 19 and 31 degrees Celsius, with the lowest yet again expected in the Central Hills. We're looking at the map. We can expect clear skies over most parts of the island. Well, the sun will be very generous to many areas of the country, including Jaffna, Mannar, Vaunia and Anuradhapura. But in areas of Colombo, Galle, Matara and Hambantota, it will be an opposite scenario as they can expect some wet weather. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city-by-city forecast.
Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
And before we go, we'd like to take you across some of Sri Lanka's world-renowned cinnamon harvesting sites. Contributing to 80% of the global cinnamon consumption, Sri Lanka boasts the best quality cinnamon in the world. Considered to be one of the most sought-after spices, it has various medicinal benefits that include lowering cholesterol as well as proving beneficial for diabetes. Thank you for joining us and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.